Let's see what it says for Christmas, just because of the season that we're in right now. What does it look like?
Okay, so now this is tricky because when I look, so the first step I think, ask myself is, how do I think this word is built? And although I see the word Christ inside of Christmas, I'm not sure that MAS is a suffix. Maybe it's MASS and it's like Christ plus mass, MASS, and then like over time we've dropped an S maybe. So I'm not super solid on what I would come up with for a hypothesis. I'm assuming it has something to do with Christ, 'tis the season and all that jazz. But I actually don't know if I would take this apart in a word sum because I can't think of that MAS being a suffix. So at this point, I'm just going to look up the word Christmas because I'm just not sure. And remember, as Lana and I demonstrated very clearly in our very first year that we did this, that it is totally okay to deal with a word as a freebase word because it's all you can do to like get that. That's as far as you can take it in your analysis. And then later discover, oh, snap, there were some bound bases hiding in there. The key to it is coming back and revisiting that work. So I'm going to treat it this way until I know more. Okay, so here we have Christmas as a noun. Church festival observed annually in the memory of the birth of Christ, late Old English, from Christ, and retaining the original vowel sound, plus mass. Written as one word from mid-14th century. Father Christmas came in 1435-ish. Christmas tree, 1835. Christmas cards were first designed in 1843 and popular by the 1860s. Christmas Eve comes from Middle English, circa the 1300s. Interesting. So we say Christmas. If I'm reading this correctly, it would have been Christmas back in the day.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, it doesn't tell us when that S was dropped, because you'll see here in the Old English, there's two S's there. So that there's the two S's. Sometimes you'll see Doug will build out almost like a timeline of the spelling and how it's evolved over time. He hasn't for this particular word, but what I'm wondering, if I go to the Oxford English Dictionary, what I like sometimes about the OED is it gives actual excerpts over time, so you can see how the spelling might have been inconsistent or changed. So 1490, we have this like, doesn't even have an H in it. There's no H there either. Interesting. But then here we have 1569, it's dropped its S. So somewhere in this period of time, the mass dropped the double S on the end. And then we see examples. Now, if I click over to etymology here, oh, interesting. So they have said the MAS, which no longer productive, which means in English spelling, we're not doing this anymore. But there was a time in English spelling where this was done, where the MAS was a combining form. So it was that MASS with the drop, but it was denoting ecclesiastical festivals. So there would have been other words that had MAS at the end of them, like Michaelmas. Sure. That sounds like I don't even know, but that makes sense. that could be exactly where that comes from. Let's look it up. It might not be in here. Yeah, Michael plus mass.
So
So
if you
you-
went back to Christmas, Charlie, and you actually were to have students talk about like the actual meaning, so if they were taking the word Christmas or Christmas, or they were pronouncing it, and for them to put their kid-friendly language to it as far as a definition goes, based on the definitions that's maybe is coming from or from our dictionary or from the Edim Online,
Mhm.
we would say that this is a celebration or like, what was their definition of mass that they had on there? What did they say? It was
Where was it? Right here. So forming nouns denoting a festival,
right.
ecclesiastical festival. I wouldn't necessarily use that word, but so it's
Yeah.
denoting some kind of a festival.
Right.
And so
yeah, the kids would say like a festival then of the celebration of the birth of Christ.
yeah,
That's how we have them reword in their language,
Yeah.
breaking up that definition of the word, right?
I like it. That's really cool. I'm wondering, let's see. No. So he doesn't have MAS as a suffix because I'm guessing it's no longer being used. Like that's what it means when it says no longer productive, means we don't do that anymore. So if there was a new ecclesiastical festival that was invented tomorrow, we would not use MAS as part of its building to denote that. There would be another word or something that we would do for it. So I wanted to offer up some seasonal word study with the idea that maybe as you head into the final 4 days of potential chaos, that if you wanted to do some word study, one of these things might work out in your favor. Remembering, of course, that any book, any text, anything can become the inspiration for you to do a word study with. So the first one I ask is WINTR, winter, part of the WIN family? So obviously, if you've never talked about word families before with your students, this is not the first conversation we have. However, if you've had this conversation before, it would be fair to throw that up. Is winter part of the WIN family? How do you know? So for those of you who are sitting there going, oh, snap, I have no idea if it is or isn't, a couple things to keep in mind. So if it was part of the WIN family, that means TER would need to be a suffix. And you would need to think of other words that have TER as a suffix. And if you can't come up with any, then it's probably not one. So that would mean it can't be in the WIN family because TER isn't a suffix. If you're still wondering and you're really not sure, then we head on over to our favorite Edim Online dictionary and we look up the word winter and we see that, oh, look at that. The word winter was the exact same in Old English. Plural was wintru. Interesting. That one didn't survive the evolution. I survived many wintrus out in the wilderness. The fourth and coldest season of the year, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so keep that in mind. If I look up the word win, it comes from Old English winnen, to labor, toil, struggle for, work at, strive, and fight. And it goes on and on and on and on. There is no mention of winter, the fourth longest, coldest season, right? So because they don't have a connection through their story, their history, they can't be in the same family together. They just happen to share 3 letters that are the same, but they are not in the family. Now, I could come back to this and say to my students, okay, well, if winter is its own free base word. What other words would be in the family? Probably not a lot. Winters, wintering, wintry, overwinter as a compound word, maybe. Or I could say, hey, well, what else would be in the win family? Winning, winner, wins. Now, we don't win at something, but we say that we won, and then maybe we're looking at some interesting past tense pieces. But this could be just a really quick question that you ask your students to kick off a little bit of a conversation. Oh, my things are all messed up here. Okay. Brainstorm all the words in the SNOW family. So if you are new to working with words and studying words and word families, this is a great place to start because we're working with a free base that doesn't have any spelling conventions when we add our suffixes. So we just plop the two parts together. Snowing, snowy, snowier. There's a Y to I toggle there from snowy to snowier. Snowing, snows. Now, the great thing about snow is it makes a ton of compound words. Snowstorm, snowman, snow fort, snow angel, snowing. I said that one. Snow shovel, snow pile. Brainstorm them all and then ask your students to do up some word sums. So if my word that I pick is snowflake or snowflakes, then what is the word sum that makes up that word that I've picked? Again, you can have them write them on a piece of paper. You could have them write on a little whiteboard, share with your neighbor. Did you happen to pick the same word? You could have this be part of a poem that you read about snow. You could look outside as it's snowing. You could maybe be doing some science related to the seasons or snow. So many places this can go. Some of you might be familiar with the little ringle dingle, I want a hippopotamus for Christmas. If you can handle that earworm of a song, play it for your students, and then you could play it on one day. You could play it tomorrow morning. And each one of these could be a different thing that you do throughout the week with that particular song. Does it have to be this song? No, you could pick any one you want. This happened to be the one that popped into my head while I was thinking about what could we talk about for this day. So in the song, she sings about hippopotamuses. So is that actually the plural of hippopotamus? And that can springboard a whole conversation around complex plurals. Now, complex plurals happen to be an area that you are asked to explore. There's a little video here that it walks you through complex plurals. And then I've created a little visual support to help you understand how we build out complex plurals based on their origin. So if it comes from Latin, we would normally convert it to an I, like cactus becomes cacti. But this is one of those interesting words, just like octopus, that was falsely, what's the word I'm looking for? Falsely assumed to be of a Latin origin, or falsely Latinized, I guess is how you say it. And so some people would say, well, it should be hippopotami. No, it's not. It's hippopotamuses is the plural of hippopotamus. So the song is correct, but you'll go through in that video right there. And this is linked in the slide deck where I talk about some complex plurals and what exactly they are and where exactly they came from and how they're not as scary as you might think. The other thing that you could do with I want a hippopotamus for Christmas is look at the word surprise. So how is the word surprise built? Anyone want to take a guess in the chat box on how the word surprise is built?
Well, I'm just wondering about sir as
Mhm.
as a prefix. Like if I went surplus, but is surplus
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to think, or surround, right? So is sir prefix?
Yeah. So sir totally is a prefix. Interestingly enough, used to be spelt with a Z. Unexpected attack or capture. Here we have sir meaning over, and comes from Latin prendere, to take, overtake. Now, what does that got to do with like, here's a gift, surprise? Well, that's not its original meaning. Its original meaning was in the idea of war or battle. So an unexpected attack or capture, that makes total sense that overtaking is the meaning of the two parts. It wasn't until later, like hundreds of years later, 1590s, where this idea of this unexpected thing. So this is one of those words where you look at the two parts and you go, what does that got to do with anything? But it's the original meaning of or sense of the word where it makes the most sense. So that means it's SUR plus PRISE is rewritten as SURPRISE, surprise. Now, what I can see here is that it comes from this Latin prendere. And one of the things that I love about the web-based online etymology dictionary is it lets us search those Latin words. The app doesn't. And so, see, I can go through here and see what other words come from the same Latin base. Not a lot, but this misprison is interesting. Wrong action, a failure, offense, or illegal act from the 15th century. When I originally started doing this and I looked up the word surprise, I thought, is prison in the family? Because PRIS, right? So I looked up the word prison, and it does have a connection to the word prize. But look here, though, it's coming from a different Latin, like historical root. So I'm not sure it would get invited to the family reunion, if you know what I mean, which I thought was really interesting. So there's those times where we see the letters and we think, oh, that's got to be connected maybe. And then we dig in and we're like, oh, actually, no, it's not. So then what else would be in the family? Well, the word apprise is, I was apprised of the situation. I was filled in about the situation. But it comes from the 1690s. So it came like after, but held on to this idea of prehendere, which means to seize. And the AD in this sense has been assimilated, right? The AP becomes assimilated from the AD, and it's just meaning to. So it's really not adding a lot there to the actual meaning or sense of the word, which is kind of interesting. Now, do you need to go this deep with, the average kiddo? Maybe not. But your class and what they're capable of handling. So that's where you decide, should we look at the word surprise? Is it going to get us anywhere? If it's not, then we don't do that. And that's the power of being able to do this work with your students and who you know and who you work with. Now,
Well, Charlie, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but the other thing with surprise, even just with the definition of it from the Etym Online, that being overtaken, like when you're surprised, right, you could be overtaken with that, like that, getting kids to just even do the descriptor of the meaning of it, literally, when you're surprised, you could be overtaken, right? So using those
Absolutely.
words. So yeah, it's just, that's another route you could go if you didn't want to go deeper, right?
And sometimes you have to be stretchy in your connections to like a current meaning or sense of a word. And its roots and how the prefixes and suffixes are working together to give that meaning or sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought this one was fun in like a really dorky sort of way. So when I look up at the word vegetarian, it almost, so it says here, first of all, it's from 1839, and it's an irregular formation of the word vegetable and agrarian, almost like a portmanteau word, where you take part of one word and part of another word and put them together to make a new word. Like words like brunch and spork would be examples of portmanteau words. The word portmanteau is also a portmanteau word, which is just a fun fact. But I thought this was really interesting. So, you know, I would ask students, if I look at the word vegetarian, what does it make you think of? And you would hope that someone out there would say, it makes me think of vegetables. Okay, well, let's go see if those two things are related. This is what I loved. An earlier adjective was anti-carnivorous. This just cracked me right up. So then we have this ARIAN as a suffix in the way it's written here. But if I look at the word vegetable, and it's written as an adjective down here, vegetare, vegetable, I wouldn't necessarily take the word vegetable apart. Vegetative, vegetate, veget, and then ABLE on the end, maybe VEGET, because that would go with vegetative. So we'd have to do a little bit of digging in that word. But if I go back to vegetarian, and I click on agrarian, means relating to the land. So I might do a digging into like how this word reminds me of agriculture. And are there other words that would be related to that in some way? Now, for those of you who are used to using the word searcher tool, you can also look up the ARIAN piece of vegetarian to see if anything else comes up. And you get a whole bunch of things, but it doesn't necessarily tell us that it's functioning in the same way. So if I look up the word librarian, I've got library plus AN. So yes, the same letters are going to be coming together, but it's not coming from that same source or place when we have the Aryan and the veget coming together in it. If you're like, no, Charlie, none of those things, then that's okay. Because the other thing you can do is print off the lyrics for the song. And as you're listening to it or as you're looking at it, have students circle all the words that have a suffix. So the word easy is on there. The word creeping is on there. The word stairs is on there. That can be as simple as it goes. I want you to circle all the words that have some kind of a suffix. And you're going to be able to tell right away who can identify the INGs that are suffix, and then who are seeing some of the things that maybe the average kiddo in your class isn't picking up, that the word easy is actually EASE plus the suffix Y to make the word easy. That, of all of these, the bottom one is the easiest thing for you to do. And you could have one group present their 3 word sums the one day, and the next group's going to present 3 word sums another day, and then maybe the third group goes the next day. And from all of those words that you look at, you're going to pick one of them and you're going to dig into the word family even further. What other words are in the ease family? What other words are in the creep family? Now, here's the activity Lana was talking about. When I did this, I didn't offer the final word sum for my partners. So if you want to make it harder, you don't do that. And I happen to bold the base elements for these cards. Now, could some of these go with others? Absolutely. Therein lies the magic, if you will, or the complexity, if you will, because ing could go with contrasting, but it could also go with, can you say transiting? Maybe. No. Transitioning is a word. So I could have trans plus it meaning go. It's a bound base element meaning go. ion, ing, transitioning. As it stands, I was thinking I would have transition, contrasting, and magician as my 3 groups. But that doesn't mean they have to form groups that way.
Charlie, maybe just talk about why you've got the hyphen, where you have it, and what that means for those that maybe don't know that.
Yeah, so if the hyphen is coming at the end, that makes it a prefix. If the hyphen's coming at the beginning, it's making it a suffix. I don't always put those in, but for sake of clarity with this task, it makes sense that you would have them so the kiddos know that these are going to go, you know, the prefixes are going to go to the left of the base element. The suffixes are going to go to the right of the base element. And obviously, if I'm making groups like this, we're digging deep into morphology concepts here, right? These morphemes are very complex. Every one of those is a bound base. We have more than one affix attached to the base. If I really wanted to simplify this, like Lana talked about earlier, I could have HELP, I could have ING, and I could have a third card that says helping. And the HELP and the ING and the helping need to find each other to form a group of 3. You could do this if you wanted to review when you do S and when you add ES to make a plural. So contrary to what you might find in commercially available resources, the general rule of thumb is if you increase the number of syllables from the base to the pluraled word, you have added ES. If you haven't, you've just added S. So if I go from horse to horses, I've gone from 1 syllable to 2. I have added an ES to the word horses. But because horse ends in a single final non-syllabic E, I'm dropping 1 E and I'm adding the ES on the end. So it looks like all I've added was an S. So if I wanted to do a review with my students around who understands when it's an ES and when it's an S being added, then I might have some S's and ES's floating around the room. And then I'm going to have a bunch of base elements. And then they're going to have to decide, is it an S that's added or is it an ES that's added in order for me to be plural? Okay, so that's one idea that you could do with these quick little cards. And like, I know some of you are like slide makers. I'm a Sharpie with a deck of index cards kind of gal. So don't overthink it, friends. You've got, just whip these off if you need to. And because you use them over and over again, like keep them in a pile and then just pull out the ones you need. If you haven't yet, check out Engage with the Page with Fiona Hamilton, because as always, they will have put up resources related to the time of year. So there's one there, How Does Santa Go Down the Chimney? And if you click on that book, it's going to offer you several ideas and suggestions of how you can use this particular picture book to explore various morphology concepts with your students. So it looks at the tail of the word chimney, We've got some different things related to phonics. We're sorting out the structure with the ES, with go and do. There's an activity there that they've got downloaded. So lots of things are available on this site. If you're ever stuck for a place to start, check out Engage with the Page.